Ever feel like you kind of shrink in those high-pressure moments? Like a big meeting at work or having to speak in public or even maybe just a tough conversation with someone. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into Amy Cuddy's book, Presence. We're going to really try to understand how our body language can actually change our minds in those exact situations.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. Like, we often think, oh, I need to feel confident before I can do something brave. But what if it's actually the opposite?
Okay, so you're saying you don't need to feel brave to be brave.
Exactly. And Cuddy talks about this surfer, Eve Fairbanks. Imagine being out on the waves, right? Having to decide which way to turn. Like right now, knowing if you don't choose right, you're going to wipe out.
Oh, man, I'm getting stressed just thinking about it. I'm more of a toes in the sand kind of person myself.
Yeah. Haha, fair enough. But Fairbanks realized that the more she hesitated on the board, the more her confidence just went poof, gone. But when she forced herself to just act, to trust her gut and just go, that's when her confidence actually grew. Each time, even if it felt risky, it became like a building block.
Act your way into thinking, not think then act.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where all this stuff about power posing comes in.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Is that like the whole Wonder Woman pose thing?
Yep, that's the one. It might sound kind of silly, but the research shows that holding these expansive, powerful postures, even just for like 2 minutes, it actually triggers changes in your hormones.
Whoa, really? So we're talking like a biological shift just from striking a pose.
Totally. Studies show it can increase your testosterone, which is that hormone linked to being assertive and taking risks. And at the same time, it lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So what happens? You feel calmer, more confident, more ready to deal with whatever's coming at you.
So it's not about trying to fool other people into thinking you're confident. It's about changing how you actually feel inside.
Yeah, exactly. It's like our brains are constantly checking in with our bodies, looking for cues on how to feel. When we make ourselves small, physically, hunching over, crossing our arms, our brain thinks, oh, okay, we must be feeling small and powerless right now.
It's like that feeling right before you have to give a presentation and you just want to disappear, like melt into the floor. You probably are physically trying to take up less space without even noticing it.
Totally. And that just makes the anxiety worse, right? But here's the good news. You can actually turn that whole thing around.
So wait, instead of our bodies telling our minds how to feel, we can use our bodies to, like, change our thinking.
That's the idea. By choosing to stand or sit in a more expansive way, even if we don't feel confident at first, it can actually nudge our brain chemistry in that direction. It's like sending a signal, hey, up there, we got this.
That is so wild. We always think about, mind over matter, but this is like matter over mind. But what about people who maybe can't physically do a power pose?
That's a great question, and Cuddy actually talks about this in the book. You know what's really cool? Even just imagining yourself doing those poses can have a similar effect.
Are you serious? Just picturing it in your head.
Yeah, our brains are funny like that. They process imagined movements in a way that's surprisingly close to real movements. It's almost like our brain is saying, well, if we were doing this for real, these are the hormones we'd be pumping out, so let's get a head start.
Wow. Our brains are so powerful. So it's not about like becoming Superman or Wonder Woman overnight,
Yeah.
right? It's about making these small, conscious changes to how we hold ourselves, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, exactly. Even little things, uncrossing your arms, standing a bit taller, making eye contact, it all sends a message, not just to other people, but to yourself, too.
I've totally noticed that when I'm hunched over my phone, I just feel more closed off, less confident. But if I catch myself and I straighten up, lift my chin a bit, it's like I can feel a difference, more energy, like I can breathe better.
Totally. And here's something else that's really interesting. Cuddy found that when people feel more powerful, they're also more likely to see others as collaborators instead of competitors.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Why do you think that is?
Well, when we feel kind of insecure, our brains can go into this scarcity mindset. We
Yeah.
start thinking, oh no, there's only so much to go around. I got to fight for my share. But when we feel more sure of ourselves, we're more likely to have this abundance mindset. We see more opportunities to work together, everyone wins, and we're less threatened by other people's successes.
That makes a lot of sense. When you come from a place of strength and confidence, you're going to approach things with more openness, more generosity, not so much like fear and defensiveness.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference in our relationships, at work, even just in our sense of purpose.
It's amazing to me how much power we have to just shift our internal state and how we show up in the world, just by changing our body language.
It really is. And the more we practice these small changes, the more natural they become. It's like creating a positive feedback loop between our bodies and our minds.
Okay, so how do we put this into practice?
Hmm.
Like, it's one thing to talk about power posing, but how do you actually make it a habit, especially when you're stressed or about to do something challenging?
It definitely takes practice, yeah. One thing Cuddy suggests is setting little posture reminders for yourself, like put a sticky note on your computer or something, or set a reminder on your phone just to do a quick posture check throughout the day.
I love that. It doesn't have to be anything big and dramatic.
Nope, not at all. Just small tweaks, sit up straight, relax your shoulders, take a few deep breaths. It's about tuning into how your body is feeling and making a conscious choice to shift into a more, expansive, open, upright posture.
It's like giving yourself a little boost of confidence throughout the day. But what about those times when, like, the anxiety is really hitting hard? Can a power pose really make a difference when you're facing something really tough?
Well, yeah, there will definitely be times when those feelings are really intense. But even then, it's important to remember that you still have a choice about how you respond.
So it's not about getting rid of anxiety altogether. It's more about, like, learning to manage it.
Exactly. Cuddy talks about these tiny little changes, these nudges, she calls them, that can shift our behavior and our mindset over time.
So even if we don't feel like a superhero, we can still make choices that help us show up with more confidence, more presence.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. We all mess up, we all have those moments of self-doubt. Be kind to yourself and keep going.
I love that. Progress over perfection. But, okay, real talk. Is it even possible to be on and present all the time?
That's such a good point. No, no one can be on all the time. It's not about trying to be this perfect picture of presence, 24/7. It's more about finding a balance, noticing when you're slipping into those habits of feeling powerless, and then using these tools to come back to yourself, come back to the present moment.
It sounds like this idea of presence is more of a practice, not a destination.
Exactly. And like with anything we practice, it takes time, effort, and patience. But the more you do it, the easier it gets.
It really is. It's like we don't realize how much those small, everyday things can actually make a difference. You know, what you were saying before about eye posture really got me thinking. It's so easy to forget about how much our digital lives, being on our phones and computers all the time, can affect how we hold ourselves physically.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it, right? We're constantly glued to these screens. It's no wonder we end up in these kind of hunched over, closed off postures without even realizing it. It's so true. Okay, so we've got our posture reminders, but what else can we do to combat that tech slouch and bring more of that presence into our digital lives too?
Well, it all starts with awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like the next time you're scrolling through your phone or whatever, just take a second to notice how you're sitting. Are your shoulders all tense? Is your neck sticking out? Just bringing that awareness to those habits is like the first big step.
Yeah, you can't change what you don't notice, right?
So awareness first, then what?
Then it's about finding those little tweaks, those adjustments. So instead of looking down at your phone, can you bring it up to eye level? Or maybe try a standing desk, or even just prop your laptop up a bit so you're not always hunched over. Even just taking a couple of deep breaths, relaxing your shoulders before you send an important email, it all adds up.
It's like bringing that same intentionality to our digital lives
Huh.
as we do to our physical presence.
Exactly. And just like with the power poses, those little shifts in how we hold ourselves while we're on our devices, it might feel weird at first. But the more you do it, it just becomes second nature.
It's about building those habits, those little things that add up to this more present, confident, empowered way of moving through the world.
Yeah.
And not just in person, but online too. This has been such a great conversation. Amy Cuddy's book is full of such amazing tools for really anyone who wants to show up more fully in their life. As we wrap up here, what's like the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with today?
I think the biggest thing Cuddy's work shows us is that presence, it's not something that some people are just born with. It's a skill. And like any skill, you can learn it, you can practice it, you can get better at it. We all have this power inside us, to find our voice, to be our best selves, even when things get tough. It starts with realizing that the power's not out there somewhere. It's within you. And by making these small, consistent changes in our body language, in our mindset, and yeah, even in how we interact with technology, we can tap into that power and really start to make a difference, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of people around us.